Yeah, and then the one. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this January 11, 2021 meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education. Members of the board, we ask for your approval of the agenda, but before we do that, just 1 second. Am I removing, tabling?
Yes.
I would like for you to look at item 8, discussion information action items. Under action, item A, athletic fields and track renovations at Bedingfield High School and Hunt High Schools. As Dr. Mills has indicated that conversations have not been completed with our county commission counterparts in regard to the athletic fields and the track renovations. So we ask that this item be tabled until our next meeting. And with that, I will ask for the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I move we approve the agenda with the one item, action A, under section 8 to be tabled for the next meeting.
Second. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Ms. Powell.
And I'm just going to add for the January 11, 2020 meeting of Wilson County Board of Education.
Okay.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the agenda be approved with the tabling of item 8, action A, until the next scheduled board meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please respond. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Borkin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen, are you with us yet? No. Mr. Mercer? Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously at the vote of 5-0. 5. Mr. Breen is not with us yet. Ms. Barnes is not here. So while that is, let me carry the motion. The motion has carried 5-0. We have Mrs. Barnes not with us this afternoon. She is ill and will not be joining us. Mr. Breen will be joining us shortly as soon as he is free from his court obligations, and will let us know when he is currently clicked in. Mrs. Powell, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence.
Yes. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Please know that this meeting is being held remotely through the Zoom video conferencing platform. The following board members are present in the boardroom: Mrs. Boyette, Mr. Borkin, Mr. Mercer, Mrs. Powell, myself, Dr. Fitch, and I'm sorry, these persons, let me do that again. The following members are present in the boardroom: myself, Dr. Fitch. The remaining board members: Mrs. Boyette, Mr. Borkin, Mr. Mercer, Mrs. Powell, are in remote settings. Mr. Breen will be joining us as soon as his court obligations have been completed, and Mrs. Barnes is ill and will not be joining us today. The meeting is being televised on Spectrum and Greenlight Channel 22 and live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. The public can also view the meeting through the links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages and the Wilson County Schools website. Based on the executive order from the governor, face coverings are being worn during the board meeting. So please bear with us as we keep in obeyance of the state mandate that while we are here in the boardroom, our meetings, our faces are covered with masks. Those that are on the board who are in their remote locations are not required to be masked. Now, we have before us the December 14th, 2020 minutes that are in need of approval. The chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell,
I move we approve the minutes for December 14th, 2020, Wilson County Board of Education.
is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that we approve the minutes of December 14th, 2020 of the Wilson County Board of Education. Please record your response. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. There is a special presentation to the board, so I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Mills to facilitate whatever is
Madam
being
Chair, let's see if I
presented.
can share my screen and get this to cooperate. If not, I've got a mediocre backup plan at best. Let's see. Let me share my screen. This will be a first, so let's see if we can make this work. All right. All right, let's see if sound works, okay?
All right?
Since it's School Board Appreciation Month, there's a special message coming from our Teacher of the Year. And let me see if I can get this to work, okay?
All right.
It might help if I have some sound. Let me turn it up.
County Schools Teacher of the Year for the 2020. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Tyler Brown. I'm a social studies teacher at the Wilson Academy of Applied Technology, and I'm honored to serve as Wilson County Schools Teacher of the Year for the 2020-2021 school year. I want to thank you for everything you do as members of the Wilson County Board of Education. Each of you contributes so Also noted was the leadership of the board and superintendent to increase student performance. From 2016 to 2019, Wilson County Schools jumped from the 90th school district in the state to the 58th, just 7 percentage points away from being one of the top 20 highest performing districts in the state. What is truly inspiring is the way you work together as a team. In every decision that is made, you come together to ensure students remain at the forefront. Once a vote is final, you move forward in unity, even if you had different opinions on the matter. January is Board of Education Appreciation Month, but I want you to know that we appreciate you each and every day, especially now as you lead us through this unprecedented time. Again, thank you for all that you do for Wilson County Schools. And now I have a few students who wanted to thank you.
Hello, I'm Ethan Cox. I'm a senior at Watt. Thank you, school board, for all of your advice. I was there a lot. I know it was good. That's help. Thank you for all the work that you do.
My name is Jordan, and I am in 11th grade, and I am a student at Watt. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Wow.
Jackson Taylor, I'm a senior at Watt. Thank you, school board, students.
My name is Jonathan Harris. I'm a senior here at Watt. I'm in the applied engineering technology field. I just want to thank the Wilson County Board of Education for all that they do here at Watt.
Hello, I'm Malia Parker. I'm a super senior at Wilson Academy of Applied Technology. I would like to thank all of the Board of Education for everything.
Such a wonderful message, and thank you and the students for the remarks offered to us, and we accept them with gratitude. Next on the agenda is the chairman's report, and I just have two very brief items. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to 2021. We have finally gotten out of 2020. And I wish each and every one of you a very happy new year. I hope that the new year is what everyone wishes for, including health and happiness. And I hope that the rest and relaxation was able to be attained by everybody during the much needed holiday break. Secondly, as we begin the new semester, we will have to continue to keep our eyes on the numbers related to COVID-19. As seen in the various newscasts, the numbers are going in the direction we would not like to see them go. They're going up and they're not going down. So that's the wrong direction. And if this continues, we will need to consider our options of staying remote or going hybrid, as we chose to schedule before we went home for the Christmas break. We know that we are scheduled to have our teachers return on the 19th and our students return on the 25th. Board members, I'd like to ask you all to be available if necessary for us to be in another meeting to make a decision, particularly if these numbers continue to be on the rise, in an effort to keep our students, our teachers, and all of our staff safe. It may be necessary for us to revise our plan again. It might be that we need to consider staying in remote through the first grading period, with the possibility of a return to the various hybrid models for the second half of the semester. Or it may be that we end up making a decision to do as some of the other systems within the state have now chosen to do, of staying remote for the rest of the school year. We have tried to cautiously look at the options, and where some systems around us chose to come back into school immediately after the break, they are now changing their minds and putting their systems on total remote learning. Well, they came back face to face, I'm sorry, and they're now having to change their minds and go into remote And some of those districts are choosing to do that for the remainder of the year. So we will look to the administration, to the officials who have the health data to keep us posted, and we may very well be back again at the table deciding how we're going to handle. Our biggest objective is to keep everybody safe. So please bear that in mind and be prepared if we are asked to come back, and we will leave that up to the administration for recommendations for us, either later today or in the upcoming few days, to decide what it is that's going to happen with our return to the classroom environment. With that, I will turn it over to the superintendent for his report. Dr. Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, board members, we were able to get the video to work from our teacher there, Mr. Brown, so I'm going to send you a link to that as well. And I also want to take a moment to thank you for all you do for our students and our district as board members. I work closely with each of you and get to see firsthand how you work together, and we work through everything to help our students and our staffs. And so congratulations on a job well done, and for all that you do that's seen and not seen. I know there's a lot that goes into it that folks don't know, and we're appreciative of that, and we're thankful to be able to work with you. So happy Board of Education Appreciation Month. And we've also received the plaque from the School Boards Association, and I've got that piece of hardware here for you to get out. So turn it on so you can actually see the real deal here. Bubble wrapped and everything, so hermetically sealed for you for later. So we've got that to share and post, and brag on yourselves a little bit. We also have received the plaque that was awarded to the county commissioners, and we'll make sure that gets to them. I've got a meeting with Ms. Steinegger later this week, and I'll deliver that over there. And so thanks for all you do. There will be a little token of appreciation that will be delivered to you tomorrow. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it's very timely. That's all I'll say. It's very timely.
Can I get you to unwrap the bubble
Yeah,
wrap?
sure.
And you can show that to the board members
That's
currently?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
could we all have group pictures and everybody get to hold the plaque?
We'll treat it like the Stanley Cup, where everybody gets it for a day.
That's what I had exactly.
That's what you're thinking? You're thinking?
Stand up.
Yeah, we'll do it like the Stanley Cup. Okay, here's what it
That'll
looks
be
like.
I want to lie down in front
See,
and
Bert.
hold it.
You gotta deal with the mirror image upside down
We think,
and right side up.
we think we can make that happen, Mrs. Boyette, no problem.
I suggest we don't do some of the other traditions with the Stanley Cup in this, because it might not work as well. But I will make sure that happens. But I've also got the one for the county commissioners, and I'll deliver that this week too. So congratulations, that is a big deal. And it was wonderful to see your work and your commitment to students here in Wilson be recognized. And it does not happen every year for school boards. There's 115 school boards. And I hate it happened during a time when we could not be there, because I know that that's a piece that the board contributes to by being part of that professional development and some of the legislative activities you do during that conference. But certainly it didn't stop you from winning, so congratulations. That's a great honor. I just had a few things to share before we get to the agenda. As Dr. Fitch mentioned, we began our second semester last week remote, and students are scheduled to remain remote until the 22nd, through the 25th rather, when they come back. Our teachers come back on the 19th. We have a holiday on the 18th. And based on some of our current trends and issues that, as Dr. Fitch mentioned, I think it might be good to have a placeholder of a meeting sometime next week, early enough so that we could talk to our teachers as they come back, and as well as making our families aware. So I would suggest something around the 19th, if that's possible, and I can send something out about that to you so you can have time to look at your calendars. But that would give us some time to talk again to the health department, look at some of our numbers, and look at our staffing issues and some of the trends we're seeing, because it is an uptick right now. and I think it's a concern everywhere. So I do think we need to have that conversation. So I'll put that out there for the board and follow up with you after the meeting about the date. Just for some information items, we do have students who've chosen to remain in the virtual academy in the process of enrolling in it. So we're asking those families to fill out a virtual academy commitment form to help us with our documentation that we'll need for Power School as well as the state. And that form is on our website, and we need those completed by Friday, January 15th. We sent that communication out, but I want to put a reminder out there about that. We're also looking ahead. If you can believe it, it's time to start talking about the school calendar again. We asked staff and families to give us feedback through Dr. Wilson's office for the 21-22. That just seems bizarre to talk about, but it is time. Traditional instructional calendar before it comes to the board for input and approval. The calendar information is on our website, and January 14th is the last day to give feedback on that. You will notice there's one option this year, and I would point out that in the past there's been multiple options, but this year with all the comings and goings we've been dealing with, plus the fact that of the options we put out, the majority response, overwhelming response, has been the option that included a completion of the first semester before holiday break. So we combined those into one calendar. So you may hear some feedback about that, but that was the driving factor because it really was a refinement of one choice rather than the two choices over the last several years. So in case you hear that, I want you to be aware why that was configured the way it was. There are 3 grants that we recently received that I wanted to share some information about. We're excited about. The first grant is from the Wilson County ABC Board to fund a substance abuse alcohol awareness program that we'll look at for our elementary schools in the spring. That donation is worth $20,000, and we'll share more details once that program is up and running. So we're very thankful for the support of our local ABC board here in Wilson County. The second grant is a coding and mobile app development grant for $77,142. This grant is in partnership with the NC State's Friday Institute, Greenlight, and the community college, Wilson Community College. We're going to identify and build a coding team among our middle and high school teachers, and they'll receive PD to teach coding and web app development to our students. We think this will lead to mentoring and leadership opportunities for our students as well as career opportunities. And we're very fortunate to have Greenlight here in our community to assist us with that. And so we're excited about that opportunity. And last, the third grant I wanted you to be aware of is from the Wells Fargo Bluebell Foundation for $10,000. And it will enable us to build an outdoor classroom in the courtyard area at Wells Elementary School. So that was part of the response to some of the things with the pandemic where folks are looking at outdoor spaces for learning, and that is one opportunity for us to give that a try. This Wednesday, January 13th, we will continue our efforts with the Innovate WCS with a mid-year virtual conference. It'll have over 30 sessions virtually for resources as we continue to grow our educators and each other in terms of our skills and knowledge, which at this time is an ongoing event for all of us as we work through these issues. All the sessions will be recorded and posted later for viewing, so you can go back and catch up on a session you may have missed. And the Media and Technology Department wanted to thank all of the presenters and our staff that are contributing to that because everyone's busy already, so thank you to them. And for those that pulled that together, it's kind of a mid-year piece this year with the changes we've seen to try and work in some time to grow skills and refocus on some of the things we're learning and doing. And finally, I would like to take a second to recommend to the board that we begin to discuss the information from the ORED report regarding our facility usage and enrollment forecasts so we plan for our needs. If you remember, we talked about that some as we approached that task with them, helping to look at our trends and patterns over the next several years. We have that information in the capital needs report, and it will be timely to work through that ORED data while the forecasts are recent. I think if we look at this information, we could also consider asking the county commissioners to have a discussion about facility needs and plans and consider some additional joint field trips, probably some virtual field trips right now, but some additional joint field trips to various schools and formally continue the conversations that were started from our last visit as a group. I do remember there being some discussion of that was a very timely and informative process. And if the board is agreeable to that, we can schedule this topic for a future meeting, and I would also be glad to contact the county manager about some additional visits and discussions with the two boards working together. So that information is timely for us to look at, and is pretty comprehensive, but it is a good time for us to begin to talk about that within our own board and within the board and county commissioners working together. So I would suggest that we take advantage of that and work on that this spring some.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, that's all I had.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Congratulations on the receipt of the various grants. We do know that you worked extremely hard on the traditional calendar, and when you have to make all of the adjustments as we've been moving along and still work on next year's calendar, that's a yeoman's task in and of itself, so we thank you for that. We thank you for the reminder of the commitment for the virtual academy forms that are due and all the other information that you have presented to us. Members of the board, it is now time for public input. We know that there have been correspondences received in regard to our return or possible return to school. And we have two persons who have asked to address the board in their written format. And they both are regarding students remaining virtual or returning to school buildings. So, Ms. Lynch, are you on the line and prepared to read those statements that have been received? We remind the audience that 3 minutes have been granted for the persons to have their presentation. And this is when we hear the matters of interest to the public. But we remind you that obscene, vulgar statements, personal attacks, and statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or immediately threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. So, Ms. Lynch, I'll ask you if you will do the first correspondence for us.
Okay. I have a letter from Sarah Jones,
Ms.
and she
Cornett.
writes that she is a concerned parent. I want to address my concerns regarding the students remaining virtual. The reason for my statement is that I had a child that came in contact with COVID while being in school. I received a call on December 21st from the assistant principal of the elementary school for which some of my kids attend. She stated that my child was in close contact with someone that tested positive for COVID. She also stated that I needed to get her tested. Can you imagine how scared I was at that particular time? The assistant principal brought to my knowledge that there were 2 testing sites for Wilson County School students, and I was somewhat relieved because at that time I was lost. I took my daughter to the site that was near where we lived. The nurses were part of the Wilson County School system through a program called WASH. They gave my daughter the rapid and the test that takes a couple of days. The rapid test came back negative, so I thought that everything was good until I received that dreadful call on December 23rd. The nurse called me and said, "Sorry to have to call you Mrs. Jones, but your daughter is positive for COVID." My breath was lost and tears began to fill my eyes. My daughter was just 7 years old and she was infected. I didn't think that it could happen to me. The only place that my children were allowed to go was to school. I thought that they were somewhat safe, but I was wrong. I have 9 other children that are students, and it is scary for just one to get sick. The nurse wanted to be sure of the results, so she wanted to test her again on the next day, which was Christmas Eve. The rapid test she took came back positive, so she did have it. Imagine what my kids were like. The next week, the entire family had to be tested, and that's when I found out that another one of my kids tested positive. To say that this has been extremely hard is an understatement. When I would receive the calls from Amber Lynch stating that someone from one of my kids' schools tested positive, I would assume that it was an adult, not a student. I want the parents, teachers, and members of the board to know that this virus is affecting everyone. If the students do return, how many more kids will become infected and how many more families will have to experience what I went through? In the last couple of days, I found out that another one of my daughter's elementary school classmates tested positive after having initially tested negative. It turns out that this little 6-year-old has a strain of the new COVID variant. She is currently at Vidant Medical Center in Greenville in pretty serious condition. As the virus counts continue to rise every day, I feel that the school should stay virtual so the students and staff can be protected. Therefore, I respectfully request that the board reconsider the decision to send the students back to school. Thank you, Sarah Jen. Therefore, I request that the board reconsider the decision.
All right, and the second letter?
Okay. The second letter is from Sandy Morgan from Boys Not Middle School. I'm a 30-year veteran teacher of Wilson County Schools and also the parent of the junior that attends Fight. I would like to express my concerns as a parent and a teacher in regards to returning to the school building in just a few days. The health and safety for students and staff is what is most important. Middle school students are required to be given 2 15-minute mask breaks and a 30-minute maskless lunch inside the classroom. This defeats the purpose of wearing a mask at all. Students and teachers are being exposed to one another in a small classroom setting, and then teachers are changing classes to go to other classrooms to teach other groups of students. Why are we doing this? Wilson County is currently at a 95 critical risk, which indicates COVID cases are very high and spreading. The week that we started our winter break, half of my grade level team was exposed to a positive COVID case in our building and required to quarantine for 2 weeks. Of course, the domino effect caused several other teachers and possibly students to be affected as well. Quarantining took away the break for many. Each time we step into it causes many of us to take risks that aren't necessary. The inconsistency of our schedule this year has also created more challenges in addition to the concern for safety. I've had the most participation in the past week that I've had since last October before we returned to the school building. The schedule change and requiring teachers to juggle face-to-face and remote instruction actually caused me to lose student participation. Not only was attendance lower, but my instruction was less effective due to attempting to teach students in the classroom and those that were remote. It all sounds good on paper, but it is not effective. Students coming to class 2 times a week end up not consistently attending class remotely the other 2 days. Consistency is what children need. I predict that the same will happen when high schools return to the building. 1 day a week in the building while a teacher makes an attempt to provide instruction face-to-face, and the students who are remote is asking more teachers than should be. It is double work and certainly not effective instruction. You are asking teachers to do the job of 2 people. We are doing the very opposite. Governor Cooper and Dr. Cohen have asked us if we return to the building. Allow me to give students the best that I can provide instructionally during this pandemic by keeping us all remote until it is safe to return to the brick and mortar setting. Thank you for your time. Sandy Alston Morgan, Boys Not Middle School.
We thank both of the writers for having expressed their issues to us. Members of the board, as you know, that we have the option of several options of responding to the speakers, and you can direct the chairman to respond on behalf of the board, direct the administration to respond, refer the matter to a board committee, refer the matter to the administration, or place the matter of concern on the agenda for a future meeting. We do know that we will possibly be having that future meeting, but in the meantime, I'm going to ask if the administration will respond to the concerns that were expressed, sure, if that is the will of the board. Is that?
Yes. Administration.
Okay. I'd like to recognize the fact that Mr. Breen has joined us for the meeting, and I'm sure that he has notified Mrs. Horrison so that she can have scheduled his time of having entered the meeting with us.
Madam Chair,
Was that Mrs. Boyette?
Boyette.
Yes,
yes, ma'am. Question,
yes.
when the superintendent asked that we start, moving forward on looking at the ORAD, report, do we need to reach consensus, or is that just a given that we will?
He has asked that we look at that. I'm sure that it will be placed on a future
I
agenda,
could place on the agenda if that's okay with the board.
so that
Yeah,
we can
Okay.
have conversation along the lines that are being requested. Okay, is that sufficient?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Perfect, I'll do that.
all right. He has indicated that he will do that, and it will be placed on a future agenda for our information, discussion, and interaction. Thank you very much. We are now at item 8, discussion information items. Under information, we have one item of a contract requiring board notification. Dr. Mills?
Madam Chair, I'll ask Dr. Williams to share information about this process. He's been working with the school on this.
Hey, Dr. Williams, thank you. You've got the
Members of the
mic.
board, I just wanted to update everyone in regards to a contract that we will be entering in very soon. And this is for a weight room project at Hunt High School. I've worked with principal and athletic director at Hunt High School, and we have the appropriate bids and have identified a company, the company that would be working to remodel and refurnish the weight room at Hunt High School. And we are prepared to begin that, and just wanted to give notification of that at this board meeting. Company is Arsenal, whom we are currently using for the Bettingfield weight room project. And once we start, or once the notification from this meeting tonight, I'll coordinate with Mr. Dahl and Mr. Smith in regards to our next steps and moving forward with this weight room project.
And even though this is a contract that we are only being notified for and does not need our approval, I'm assuming that the necessary approval from board attorneys will be dealt with. And Dr. Mills and Ms. Cornetta are both saying yes.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any questions, members of the board? Hearing none, we'll go on to the action under this particular discussion information. The 2020-2021 budget amendments.
Madam Chair, I turn it over to Mr. Stanley, our finance officer, so he can share those budget amendments with you.
Mr. Stanley, welcome to the meeting, and you now have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
What's the first one, the state?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
As you can see, we received an additional $496,672, and $455,614 came for transportation, and $41,058 came for Corona relief funds for home and our community Wi-Fi. The $455 was budgeted for salaries and benefits and supplies and materials and that type. And the Corona relief funds, the $41,000 was budgeted for equipment. Also built within that amendment, you see that negative $209,733. We had to convert 3 teaching positions to cover international faculty positions, which you see the positive right below that. Then you see a negative $458 for restart. What we're going to try to do here, what we're doing here is moving money from instructional programs to support services to align the budget with projected expenditures. And then the $285,809 down at the bottom, that's negative. We're doing the same thing with Corona relief funds. What we're doing here is any funds that were left over and all the Corona relief funds, we transferred the leftover funds to the Corona relief program for child nutrition to help child nutrition out with our salaries and benefits. Are there any questions on that specific one?
Members of the board, do you have any specific questions about any of the items mentioned by Mr. Stanley?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Boyette?
the internet, the 3 positions, are they related to the Spanish immersion program, or is it just other programs?
The Spanish immersion program that's at our Frederick Douglass Elementary. So it is related to Spanish immersion, yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Then let's move on to Budget Amendment 302, your federal fund.
The additional funds that were received, $136,000, is the first installment of 21st Century Grant. It was budgeted for salaries and benefits and workshops and that type. Then the rest of the ones that you see, that Title I basic, that $30,000 is just transferring money to align the budget with expenditures in with the Department of Public Instruction. Same thing for that IDA 6B handicap special needs. It's just transferring funds to again align the budget for contracted services, supplies, and workshops. The CARES Act money was again taken from essential programs to align the budget with projected expenditures as far as that goes. Any specific questions on that particular one?
Members of the board, do you have any questions? Hearing none, then let's move into Budget Amendment 804, Local Special Revenue Fund.
These were some funds that we received. The first one was an anonymous gift for some elementary books that wanted to help children with diversity. The second one is the PTO at New Hope wants to assist schools in getting some televisions.
All right. Members of the board, do you have any questions in regard to the Amendment 804? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion in regard to the aforementioned budget amendments.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer?
I move that the Board of Education approve Budget Amendment 104, State Public School Fund, Amendment 302, Federal Funds, and Amendment 804, Local Special Revenue Funds as recommended by administration.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mrs. Boyette, that we approve the presented budget 2020-2021 budget amendments, 104 State Public School Fund, 302 Federal Fund, and 804 Local Special Revenue Fund. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please record your vote. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Borkin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer? Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously 6-0. Mr. Mercer?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personal matters as provided by North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321 to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402 and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. 1232G to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and/or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11A5, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11A3.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Mrs. Powell, that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C-319 through 321, to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and North Carolina General Statutes 115C-402, and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20, United States Code 1232G, to establish or give instructions concerning the Board of Education's negotiating position concerning a potential acquisition and/or lease of real property as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A5, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please record your vote. Mrs. Boyette?
Aye.
Mr. Borkin?
Aye.
Mr. Breen?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Mrs. Powell?
Aye.
Myself, Dr. Fitch, aye. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously 6-0. We are now adjourned to closed session.